Hey, this is the first time I have ever made a post like this. This account was originally meant to be used for trading card content, but I never got around to it. If my formatting is off or anything seems confusing, I apologize. I will do my best to be clearer in any follow-ups. Also, sorry in advance for any typos. I am dyslexic. My girlfriend, I will refer to her as F throughout this, and I have been dating for 2 years. We met during our senior year of high school and have continued dating through college. We go to the same campus and even live in the same dormitory building. This is her first real relationship, and to be honest, it is the most serious one I have had as well. When we were in high school, she was very slow to want to do anything physical in terms of affection. She would not hold my hand in public or stand close to me. I understood that not everyone moves at the same pace, and that is perfectly okay. But it was like this for pretty much the entire year we dated in high school. She kept very limited physical contact, which made me feel a little undesirable at times. I did not want to push too hard, though, because I did not know how to address it properly, and she had set these as her boundaries. I respected that. I am not asking for constant public displays of affection. Just holding hands would have meant a great deal more than standing several feet apart from each other. Whenever I tried to bring the subject up, asking why we never held hands or what made her uncomfortable about kissing, she would tell me that I was making her feel bad for having her boundaries, and I would back off. It got to the point where, for her to even kiss my cheek in public, it had to be at night, in the dark, in my car with tinted windows. I understood she had her limits, but it still made me feel hurt. And what made it worse was that whenever I expressed how I was feeling, it would end with F being upset with me, rather than us actually talking it through. Gradually, about a year and a half into the relationship, she became more comfortable with holding my hand and kissing me, which did help resolve some of those early issues. But other challenges remained. F was, and still is, someone who struggles with significant anxiety. When we first started dating, it was considerably more intense than it is now. To give one example, when she would kiss my cheek goodbye as I dropped her off at home, again, in the dark, all of that, she would then spiral into worry that someone had seen us. She would not want to talk to me for hours afterward while I tried to reach out and calm her down. This kind of thing was happening almost every single day. Something would set her off, and it would default to me being the one to help her manage it. That became very difficult, especially in situations involving my family. At my birthday, and at my graduation party, for instance, she would disappear to my room both times and just cry, waiting for me to come and comfort her while I was supposed to be spending time with the people celebrating me. Situations where everything had to pause for her emotional state started to take over a significant portion of our relationship. She has since communicated that some of this comes from a need for control and feeling overwhelmed when things are unpredictable. I cannot quote her precisely since I do not fully remember the conversation, but it was along those lines. As a person, she is genuinely sweet and caring, and that is something I want to be very clear about. But it was a lot. With summer coming and us both preparing to move to the same college, things eased off somewhat. We would text and call each other every day, and while I was still the de facto problem solver for her, it was not as overwhelming because I was not physically right there every time something came up. But I found myself worrying about her more, especially during longer stretches where she would tell me she was struggling and then go quiet without replying. I tried to talk to her about this pattern a few times. Each time the conversation would mostly go in the direction of her saying she was sorry, that she was trying to learn to manage things more independently, and wanted me to stop helping her as much, and that she could figure things out on her own. Then it would shift briefly to something like expressing disbelief that my feelings had been hurt. But when I actually followed through and held back from helping, she would either get frustrated with me for not being there, or would end up asking for my help anyway, putting us right back in the same cycle. Still, I felt hopeful going into college together. She had been planning to start an anxiety medication, and I believed we could make real progress once we were in the same place and working on things more consistently together. The first few weeks were actually pretty good. She was out and happy, and there were no major panic episodes. But then came a significant setback. Because we had moved to a different state, she was unable to refill her prescription right away. Not only did her anxiety intensify again, but she was going through withdrawal at the same time. That became the hardest stretch we had experienced together. Every day there would be something I did or said, or just a situation that arose that caused a major upset. I want to be fair here and acknowledge that I am not perfect. I can be unintentionally rude sometimes. I admit there were moments where I made a bad joke or said something I should not have. But some of what was happening felt very disproportionate. For one example, and I recognize this is one of the more severe ones, we went shopping for professional clothing for an office job she had just started. When she could not find her size, she became very distressed. I offered to help look, suggested other options, offered to drive her to another store. Instead, she shouted in the middle of the shop that she was overwhelmed and needed to go home. She also shoved me and hit me. I do not think it was entirely intentional, and it did not hurt physically, but the fact that that was her immediate reaction was unsettling to me. I let it go, knowing she was in the middle of withdrawal and going through a lot. But it stayed with me. Around this same time, I was working for my college's student government. I genuinely enjoyed it, but I was barely spending any time there beyond what was strictly required because F really wanted me around as much as possible. When I was not with her, I would receive a large volume of messages in a short period of time. If I did not respond quickly enough, she would tell me she felt neglected and that I was not making her a priority. I understood the feeling to a degree, but this was also effectively part of my job. I had to work with other students, be approachable, and collaborate with people on various projects. Her messages made it very difficult to focus, and eventually I would end up cutting my time short and going to spend it with her. She was also cutting into the time I had for personal things I enjoyed, like going to the gym. I did not bring it up because I did not want to set off another argument. Then everything came to a head one day. We had been arguing on and off for most of the day and had not seen each other. I was coming back from a rare gym visit, and F wanted to spend time together. I agreed, but said I just needed to grab some food first since I had just finished working out. The car ride over was mostly uncomfortable silence with a bit of small talk. I was telling her about some of the co-workers I had been getting to know, and I mentioned one of them, a girl I got along with well. I will call her A. F did not like hearing about A at all. I understood. New environment, meeting lots of new people. Jealousy is a natural human feeling. I tried to address it calmly. I said I understood where she was coming from, but that A and I were co-workers and I would see her regularly for work and at events. I told F I would keep things friendly and professional, and that I would tell her anything she wanted to know. That did not land well. F was dealing with general jealousy about many of the new people I was meeting for work, and she told me I was probably going to lose interest in her and be unfaithful to her. That was not the first time she had said something like that, but it still hurt deeply because I had done absolutely nothing to give her that impression. I handed her my phone and told her she could go through it completely. I said it was hurtful that she thought so little of my character, but if she needed proof of my loyalty, she was welcome to look. She tossed the phone back without looking at it, and we drove the rest of the way back in uncomfortable silence. Walking back to the dormitory, we ran into none other than A. And in what felt like something out of a comedy film, A saw me, jumped up and down, and called out a very affectionate nickname in front of F. That is not an exaggeration. The first thing I did was introduce F as my girlfriend. After A walked on, we continued back to my room in silence. And then F completely fell apart, which I genuinely understood. Worrying your partner might be developing feelings for someone, and then having a girl you have never met call him a pet name out of nowhere. That looks terrible, and I knew it. I am going to skip the details of that argument because it covered a lot of ground. The important part is that once we both calmed down, I told her honestly how I had been feeling for a while, that there always seemed to be something wrong, that I felt more like a caretaker than a boyfriend, and that the dynamic was exhausting. That made her go quiet. We decided to take about a week apart to think about what we each wanted. It was not truly a break in the formal sense, just some space. Eventually, we decided to stay together. When she was on her medication, things were genuinely really good. and we wanted to try to build on that. F got back on her medication, and things improved significantly. There were still some triggers. Any mention of A would make her anxious and upset. But we worked around it. Now we are into our second year of college, nearly done with the spring semester. But I am noticing the same patterns beginning to resurface. The feeling that something is always not quite right, that we are not spending enough time together, that things are not sufficient. Every time I try to bring it up, it ends with her becoming very upset, crying, and telling me she feels guilty. And I believe her sincerity in that. She is genuinely a kind and loving person. That is who I fell in love with. When things are good between us, they are really, truly good. But there are times when I am completely exhausted by how consistent this cycle has become. We move forward, and then we slowly drift back to where we started. I do not know what to do. I want to make this work. I think I want to marry her someday. But right now, I just want to make sure we have a solid foundation before anything else. Please help me. About a year ago, I went out bar hopping for one of my friend's 21st birthday. My best friend and my boyfriend came along for the evening. At the end of the night, we got to our motel, but we could not get in because the front desk had a computer issue, and we had to wait while they reset the system. I was very unwell from the night and was sitting in the car trying not to be sick. My best friend and my boyfriend left together, just the two of them, and were gone for what felt like a couple of hours. From what I was told afterward, they found a shopping cart somewhere nearby and pushed each other around in it and sat in it together before coming back. The next day, my boyfriend told me they had held each other in the cart. For some reason, I was not particularly alarmed by that. I brushed it off and did not think much more about it. A few days later, my friend called me. She told me she was feeling extremely guilty and had something she needed to tell me. She said that in the cart they had hugged each other and that he had pet her hair. I asked her to give me more context. What had led up to it? Whether he had done anything else? Whether it had felt flirtatious? She told me she did not really think it felt flirtatious, but that she was concerned they had crossed the boundaries of my relationship. To me, that did not quite rise to the level of cheating, but it was definitely strange. I called my boyfriend and asked him to explain. He asked me whether she had told me she had been crying. He said she had asked him whether he thought her own boyfriend might be cheating on her, and that she had broken down in tears. There were some things going on at the time that did suggest she might genuinely have been dealing with that situation. I asked my friend whether this was true, and she confirmed it was. I then asked her why she had not mentioned that earlier when I had specifically asked for more context. She told me she had not thought it was relevant. My boyfriend told me that his only intention had been to comfort her. He asked me whether what had happened made me uncomfortable. I told him that going forward, I would prefer he did not get that physically close with my friends, but that if his intentions had genuinely been to comfort her, and nothing more, we were okay. I asked him to reach out to my friend, check whether he had made her uncomfortable, apologize if that was the case, and set clearer expectations around physical closeness in the future so that we could all move on. As far as I knew at the time, that conversation went well. 2 weeks later, my friend called me again. She said there was more that she had not felt safe enough to share before. She told me that at various points during the night, he had been looking at her lips in a way that felt flirtatious, and that he had made comments about her body while pushing her in the cart, saying she was easy to push. She also said he had been very physically affectionate with her throughout the whole evening. One specific example she gave was that at a moment when she told him she was feeling sad and anxious, he asked her permission to pat her shoulder. She also told me that at the end of the night he had helped her take off her boots. They were long zip-up boots, and she was having trouble balancing while trying to remove them standing up. When she finally got them off, he called her a good girl. She then told me something that alarmed me considerably more. In the text conversation they had afterward, the one he had with her to check whether he had made her uncomfortable, he had apparently told her that if anything like that ever happened between the two of them again, she should come to him first rather than to me. The phrase he used with the boots and the instruction not to come to me first were both very concerning. She told me she was now certain he had been hitting on her and that I should end the relationship. She also said she would send me screenshots of their text exchange. I asked her for them, but several hours passed and they did not come. Eventually, I reached out to my boyfriend directly and asked him for his side of the conversation. When I looked at the screenshots he shared, I was confused by what I saw. In the exchange, he had asked her whether he had done anything to make her uncomfortable. She replied that he had not. He said he was sorry if he had in any way, and she told him there was nothing to apologize for. He then wrote that she was always welcome to come to him directly if he ever made her feel uncomfortable in the future, a statement that read very differently in context from how she had described it. I spoke to my boyfriend about the phrase he had used with the boots and told him directly that it was not appropriate. He said he had not meant it in any way that was inappropriate and that it had been meant as something light and silly. I told him that regardless of his intent, for most people that kind of language is something reserved for a romantic partner, and that if any of my male friends had said something like that to me, he would almost certainly have had a problem with it. He apologized, and we agreed he would not say anything like that again. I then talked with my friend and explained that I was confused by the difference between what she had described and what was actually in the screenshots. She told me it had been a mistake on her part. After thinking through everything, I decided that my best friend being certain he had been hitting on her was not something I could completely dismiss. But I also did not feel there was enough concrete evidence to fully distrust my boyfriend. I decided I would hold on to what I had learned and continue to observe things going forward. I told my friend that I was sorry he had made her uncomfortable and that the three of us did not need to spend time together anymore. I also told her gently that I had felt a little unsettled by the way information had come out so gradually over 3 weeks, that context had been left out at different times, and that the word gaslighting had been used in a way that did not quite fit what had actually been described. She told me she had been deeply stressed by the situation, and that was why she had struggled to be upfront. For me, it was genuinely difficult. I wanted to trust my best friend fully, but I felt uneasy about the way the story had unfolded and the gaps in what she had shared and when. There was something else I chose not to mention to her, because I did not want to place blame or make things worse. I had noticed throughout that evening that she had also been quite physically affectionate with him. She had picked him up, asked him to pick her up, grabbed his hand to drag him places, and bought him drinks. None of that had particularly bothered me at the time, but it made me uncomfortable that she was characterizing him as having been very touchy without acknowledging that she had been too. What happened next made everything worse. My boyfriend became very upset by the whole situation. He cried and told me he felt like a terrible person, that he had not meant to make her feel uncomfortable, and that he was afraid I was going to end things. He said he felt like he was being framed, and that she was trying to break us up. Then, one afternoon, while I was napping because I was sick, he sent my friend a message without telling me. He called her irrational and self-centered and brought up the situation with her own boyfriend who had been cheating on her. That was the first time I witnessed his anger directly, and it shook me. My friend was hurt and upset, and I reached out to apologize immediately, telling her I had had no idea he was going to do that. She asked me what I thought about what he had said and why he had done it. I told her that what he said was inexcusable, but that I understood why he had been hurt and angry. She told me she needed some space from me. Looking back honestly, I should have ended things with him after that. My boyfriend sending a cruel and hurtful message to one of my friends was not something I should have accepted. But I rationalized it to myself as an isolated outburst, and I stayed. Over time, though, his anger issues became increasingly clear. He would say very hurtful things to me during arguments, never anything that made me physically afraid, but verbally damaging. I had never been in a relationship with that kind of dynamic before, and I think I became very attached and found it difficult to leave the cycle. Eventually, I did give him an ultimatum. If he ever spoke to me that way again, I would end things. Somewhat surprisingly, he did genuinely stop that behavior, but the trust was already significantly damaged. I eventually ended the relationship. I feel a little ashamed to admit that we have remained in an on and off situation even to this day. As for my friend, after she told me she needed space, we tried to meet and talk on about 4 different occasions. Each time, she canceled. Eventually, she stopped responding to me altogether. Now, about a year later, she has reached out to some of my mutual friends and told them that he touched her in a way that was sexual. Those friends told me about it. They said they believe her and that I need to speak with her, and that she is ready to have that conversation now. Honestly, after everything that has happened and all this time, I am not sure I want to have that conversation. I know I should. I am going to. But I do not feel the same level of trust toward her that I once did, and I do not fully know what to expect from it. Right now, my ex-partner and I are spending time together again, though not officially in a relationship. I feel ashamed about that. I feel horrified by the idea that he may have actually assaulted my friend and that I may have had no idea all this time. I keep asking myself why I continue to see him, and when I am honest with myself, I know I cannot build a future with someone who has done all of this. At the same time, I genuinely enjoy being around him, and that makes the confusion worse. I also feel guilty for no longer fully trusting my friend. I do not know if that is the right way to feel. Part of me wonders whether things would have turned out differently if I had talked to her more, or if I had ended things with him when I should have, right after he sent that awful message. Maybe we could have had that honest conversation back then. But we did not. The path I keep coming back to is this: have the conversation with my friend, and then move on from both of them. I have been telling myself for a long time that I need to let go of my ex-partner, but I keep finding reasons to stay. All of this is tearing me apart from the inside, and I feel deeply confused and uncertain about my own instincts. I am grateful to anyone who read all of this, and I am genuinely hoping for some advice or perspective. My girlfriend and I just broke up. For those who may have seen my previous post, you might remember my username and the context of our situation. It had been bad for a while. We had been fighting constantly, and the toxicity was reaching an extreme level. She would get very angry, and as I have been told since, I was not a great listener. I was opinionated, and she became afraid that if she communicated honestly with me, I would get mad, even though I had told her I wanted her to talk to me. I accept my mistakes, and I understand why she was frustrated. But there is one thing she said that I cannot make sense of, and that is what I need help with. We had agreed to take a break. The past 2 weeks of our relationship had been rough. She was studying abroad in Spain, and last weekend we had a major fight. We mutually suggested taking a week-long break. I broke that agreement, though. I texted her and told her I did not want a break from her. I just wanted a break from trying to resolve our issues for the duration of that week, until Friday. My idea was that we would not discuss any of the problems between us and would simply talk casually about our days and normal things. She did not like this. She got angry, kept hanging up on me, and said some very unkind things. Part of why I reached out was that I have depression, and I genuinely needed someone to talk to. She responded by telling me she did not care and that I was annoying her. Before all of this, we had an incredible relationship. Even up until last weekend, she was messaging me constantly, all day, every single day. We both had access to each other's social media accounts, something we had set up ourselves, sharing passwords and things like that. I was a follower of her private secondary account on social media, and I had seen nothing that raised any concern. No unfamiliar people commenting heavily on her posts. Nothing that suggested she might be seeing anyone else. There was truly nothing that made me think something like that was going on. Today, during a phone argument, she told me she had fallen out of love with me. I was confused and pushed back. I pointed out that just days ago she had been completely engaged with me. Enthusiastic, affectionate, getting excited when I said something sweet and romantic. I said I could understand if her feelings had changed over the course of a painful week of fighting, but that the shift seemed too sudden and too extreme to be explained by that alone. She can get very angry when she reaches a certain point, and when she does, she says things she does not mean, that she hates me, or worse. This is a pattern I had seen before. So when she said she had fallen out of love with me, I was not entirely sure how much to take at face value given the state she was in. I said to her that the only way I could see her having genuinely fallen out of love with me so suddenly was if her feelings had shifted towards someone else. When I said that, she responded with a very sarcastic tone, something she often does when she is in one of her more intense emotional states, and said something like, "Oh, really? Is that so?" She started laughing in a mocking way. I said yes, and she said, "And what if I do?" I asked her to repeat herself. She said, "Yeah, what if I do?" I asked her whether that would not be a form of emotional unfaithfulness to me. She mocked the question, still laughing. I moved the conversation forward, and eventually she told me that she was completely done with the relationship. She then blocked me. After she unblocked me and we got back on the phone, I asked her once more, directly and calmly, to just tell me honestly whether there was someone she had developed feelings for. She started laughing again and said yes. I asked who. She said she was not going to tell me and that I was acting irrational, meaning she assumed I would contact the person if she told me, which she had no real basis for believing. I told her I felt like I at least deserved to know. She told me it was none of my business. I asked her repeatedly, and she kept saying she was not going to answer. I started guessing names, and she simply said no to each one without engaging further. I asked her why she would say something like that to me, and then refused to give me anything more. I asked her whether she wanted to be with this person. Then her tone shifted somewhat. She started saying she does not want a relationship with anyone. Not with him, not with me, not with anyone. She said she just wants to be left alone and wishes she had never gotten into our relationship at all. And that is where the whole thing stops making sense to me. None of it adds up. So I have two possible explanations in my head. The first is that during the 2 weeks we were fighting, she made a close friend, possibly someone she met while studying in Spain, and leaned on that person for support and companionship while we were struggling. And then in the heat of the argument, she used that closeness as ammunition, framing it as having feelings for him, even if what she actually felt was more of a close friendship during a painful time. The second possibility is that she said it simply to hurt me and make me angry, and there is no one at all. What makes it harder to accept the first theory is that she was telling me she was completely in love with me just 2 weeks ago. How does someone go from that to genuinely developing feelings for someone else in such a short time? And if there is someone in Spain, I feel like I would have noticed. Someone commenting repeatedly on her posts, something in the messages, some sign. I believe it is more likely she met a good friend in the course of those 2 difficult weeks and either exaggerated how she felt about him or invented it entirely to get a reaction from me. After she blocked me again, I was in a very bad state. Because this was my first real relationship, and because she has broken up with me multiple times before only to come back, I was not ready to accept that this time might genuinely be different. I sent her messages, long ones, on all of her accounts. I apologized for my mistakes. I told her it was not fair that she had told me what she needed me to change, and then left before giving me the chance to actually do it. I told her that if she was completely and genuinely done, and if there was truly no chance, I would accept it. But I asked her to at least let me know if she needed time to think, rather than leaving things this way. I know I should have given her space. I know spamming someone with messages when they are already overwhelmed is not the mature thing to do. I apologized for that too. But I was panicking, and I could not hold myself together in the way I wish I had. There is also something I should mention that made all of this even more painful. My dog was dying on the same day all of this happened, and she did not care at all. She showed no concern and gave me nothing in that moment. Now I am trying to figure out how to handle the days ahead. She is leaving Spain and going home tomorrow, and I may not hear from her until at least the following day. I do not know how to keep my thoughts from spiraling, how to stop my mind from going to that other person, whoever he is or is not, and how to protect my sense of self-worth through all of this. My previous relationship ended because I was cheated on multiple times. She knew that about me. And now to have her say something like this, whether it is true or not, hits differently because of that history. If there is any chance she calms down and is open to trying one more time, and I genuinely do not know whether that is the right thing to pursue, I do not know how to approach what she said about the other person. I do not know how to tell her, if she is considering giving things another chance, that I need her to not spend time with him in the meantime, at least not while things between us are still unresolved. I am aware of how insecure that sounds. I just know myself, and I know the anxiety that this has already triggered in me, especially given my history. The thing is, she does this. She has broken up with me multiple times during her worst moments of anger, and then come back once things cooled down. She has said she hates me before and later told me she did not mean it. This has been a repeated pattern throughout our 3 years together. The difference this time is that she went further than she ever has before. She actually blocked me. She said she does not like me as a person, and she said she has no feelings left. So I am genuinely uncertain whether this is the same pattern repeating, or whether this time is actually the end. Part of me thinks that the environment of studying abroad may have played a role. A new setting, new friends, distance, the pressure of our fighting from far away. Now that she is going home, she will not have that same social cushion around her, and things may feel different once she settles back into her normal life. But I also have to be honest with myself. Whatever the truth is about the other person, and whatever her reasons are for ending things this time, I know this relationship has been deeply painful and complicated. I know my mistakes contributed to where we are. I know I need to take care of myself. So I am asking for advice. No matter how direct or honest. How do I get through the next few days? How do I stop thinking about a person who may not even exist? How do I handle this less emotionally and more maturely? And ultimately, should I wait and see if she reaches out, or accept that this time it really is over? Too long. Didn't read. My girlfriend and I fought. She told me she has fallen out of love with me and sarcastically admitted there might be someone else, though it is unclear whether that is true or just something she said in anger. She has blocked me, and I'm not sure whether to wait and hope she calms down, or accept that this time it is really over. This is not meant to hurt anyone or point fingers. It is simply the truth of what happened from my side, shared with love and respect for everyone involved. I do not want sympathy, or for people to take sides. I just want clarity, honesty, and for those who have been part of our lives to understand what really happened. Beginning in 2015, my wife and I went through a great deal together. We saw our share of ups and downs. I remember early on in our relationship, during our first real rough patch, her avoidant attachment style began showing itself. She started treating me coldly and giving me the silent treatment without any apparent reason. I remember sitting at her house, watching her children with her. We had only just started seeing each other, and spending the whole day babysitting and cleaning. It got to the point where I felt more like a maid and a babysitter than a partner. I remember calling her friend Margaret one evening and venting about it. Margaret told me to stand my ground, to tell her I would be there for the kids but nothing more if things did not change. I never actually said that to her. But the way she had been treating me became one of the catalysts that eventually got her into therapy and onto medication. After that, things genuinely improved for a decent stretch of time. It felt like we were the perfect couple. Then came one of the roughest periods of our relationship, somewhere around 2017 and 2018. And this time, it was almost entirely my fault. I did not recognize it at the time, but I had slowly fallen into a depression, the kind that creeps in quietly, without announcing itself. It was not one big thing that brought me there. It was the accumulation of many smaller things. Minimizing myself, not feeling heard or seen. Every time I tried to raise a conflict, she would shut down and become self-critical, and I would immediately drop the subject because I did not want her to feel bad. The problem was that nothing ever got resolved. Add to that our financial struggles, the stress of wanting to have children when we already had a lot of responsibility, and the weight of living on housing assistance. All of it together pressed down on me harder than I ever admitted to myself. I started trying to make myself numb. I played video games, I drank alcohol, and I watched adult content online. That last one had a grip on me I never anticipated. It disrupted my brain chemistry in ways I did not see coming, and it brought a deep shame into the depression that made everything worse. I became the worst version of myself I had ever seen. I was drinking too much. I was hostile, raising my voice, being belittling, dismissing things that mattered. What I did not understand then was that this was just another attachment pattern playing out. Self-sabotage, with pain spilling out sideways. My nervous system was trying to make me feel in control when what I actually felt was scared and powerless. I believe it peaked somewhere between 2019 and 2020 before things slowly started to improve. I remember enough of what I did during that period that I do not question the things I have been told I did that I cannot recall. And I am deeply sorry for all of it. I honestly do not know why she stayed. But I know that when she did, I felt like the luckiest man alive. We got through those difficult moments together. We apologized. We forgave. And I believed we had become stronger for it. Then came 2022. By mid-year, I had long since stopped drinking. I had not yet fully recognized the depression I was still carrying, but I had at least fought through and overcome my dependence on alcohol, because it had been destroying us. I had stopped at the end of 2021. In 2022, I was working long weeks, sometimes 60 hours, while also managing a ruptured disc in my back and trying to hold everything together at home. I could feel the distance between us, but I did not know how to close it. I would go to work and think about what I could do differently, then come home and try. I helped around the house. I did the dishes despite the back pain. I handled whatever needed handling. One day I tried to embrace her from behind and felt the coldness in her response. I did not know what to do, but I still did not see what was coming. In the middle of 2022, I discovered a months-long affair. I knew we were not in a good place, but I had been genuinely trying to repair things in my own way. The problem was that every time I tried to approach her, she shut down. None of my attempts to close the distance worked. It happened on an ordinary day. She was napping before I had to leave for work. I was watching the children and needed to look something up on an account she sometimes used. When I tried to log in, it asked for a verification code sent to her phone. I picked up her phone to get the code, and that was when I saw a message. There was not much in that single text, but it was clear there had been much more, and that the rest of the conversation had been deleted. The truth came out slowly over the days and weeks that followed. Every new detail I uncovered I had to discover on my own, and then present to her before she would admit it. Eventually, I found out it had been going on for months, at least 3 or 4. They had been talking throughout the day while I slept after night shifts, and again after I left for work. He had even come to our home while I was away. They talked about our relationship, about each other, and shared inappropriate images. For months, she had been shaping what I knew, what I believed, and what I felt safe in. Suddenly, months of my life were shown to have been built on something that was not real. She told me she had planned to leave me, and that she had not said anything sooner because she did not want to hurt me. In the first couple of weeks after I discovered it, we went into a kind of intense reconnection, almost like a second honeymoon phase. I told her repeatedly that I did not blame her, that I understood we had both played a part, and I kept apologizing for mine. But as time went on and more details continued to surface, I realized I still did not have the full picture. Inevitably, the thought crept in. Why am I taking responsibility for her choices? I did not want to feel that way. But I started to struggle deeply. I became quiet and distant. Not cold or neglectful. I was still showing up, still doing my part at home and with the children, but mentally I was fighting a silent war, trying to find a way to accept everything and move forward. I tried coping strategies that ultimately hurt me. I adopted mental frameworks that let me feel some sense of control, even when they caused me pain. There were moments when I looked at her and felt ill. There were moments when I thought I did not know if I could do this for the rest of my life. But leaving was never truly an option in my mind. I had to find a way to make it work. I never sought professional help during those 3 years because I convinced myself I could not afford it. So for 3 years I stayed lost in that spiral, barely truly present. My wife and I began to feel more like housemates than partners. At least, that is how I felt. I can only imagine she felt something similar. Then came June 2025. I finally told myself I was done drifting. I was going to do whatever it took, no matter what, to rebuild and commit fully. I had a moment of clarity where I said to myself, I am all in. No more uncertainty. But when I looked around honestly, I could see how much distance had grown between us. I started small, trying to close the gap, showing more affection, initiating closeness. When it was not landing, I asked her one night what was wrong and told her I missed her. She became emotional and said she missed herself too, the parts of herself she felt she had abandoned inside our relationship. That hit me harder than I expected. After that, my mind went into overdrive. I started trying harder to reconnect, but nothing seemed to work. I became convinced she might be being unfaithful again. I started asking questions, probably sounding like accusations. The more I did that, the more she pulled away. What I did not see then was that she was protecting herself. The further she withdrew, the more desperate and anxious I became. And the more desperate I became, the more she withdrew. We were caught in what is known as the anxious avoidant cycle. Around this same time, I began therapy and joined a program specifically designed for couples in crisis. It was there that I discovered attachment theory, and it explained so much about why I had reacted the way I had for years, and why she had too. That understanding, combined with consistent therapy work, helped me learn to regulate my nervous system and manage my anxious responses. Once I gained some control over those triggers, I was able to step back, give her space, and remain calm and steady. I started showing up consistently and with real presence. But no matter how much space I gave her or how steady I became, things did not improve. Eventually, things escalated to a conversation in late October where I asked her directly whether she wanted me to stop reaching for her, to stop the small physical gestures of closeness. She told me the truth. She said that there was barely anything left in her that wanted to stay, that she largely wanted to leave. And now she has left the house. I have been here alone with the children for 2 days. I am not upset about being here with them, and I am not bitter that she is gone. But I am genuinely heartbroken about what has happened to our relationship. I think I misread the signals. I thought we were slowly moving in the right direction. We were still sleeping in the same bed. She had initiated closeness a few weeks before. Every now and then when we kissed, I felt something real between us. But I see now that for a long time she had been quietly and steadily detaching, because of how absent I had been during those 3 lost years, and because of her own avoidant attachment patterns. She began to feel hopeless, convinced that what she had done to me had permanently broken something. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, that kind of shame is unbearable. So her nervous system began to do what nervous systems do. It started reframing the story. It turned things that had been forgiven into things that felt unforgivable. It rewrote history in a way that made leaving feel justified. She has been quietly convincing herself that the version of me from my darkest years is still who I am. She has been protecting herself from a man who no longer exists. And I understand why. Her nervous system is doing its job, trying to keep her safe from pain. But what she may not see is that we can all learn to regulate these responses. We can learn to examine those protective thoughts and choose differently if we are willing to do the work. I believe she sees her own patterns. She is genuinely intelligent and deeply strong. But I think she made the decision to leave months ago. And once that became the story she was holding, it became the only one she could hold. And so here we are, at what may be the end. To all the loved ones who welcomed me into this family as one of their own, I want to apologize for every moment of pain I brought into her life, and by extension into yours. I see now what I did not understand then. We were both frightened, wounded, and lost. Just 2 people trying to make sense of their feelings and find love and safety in very different ways. I know neither of us ever meant to hurt the other the way we did. but I am truly sorry. I have worked hard and made changes I genuinely did not believe I was capable of making. I stopped drinking. I stopped the other patterns that were destroying us. I got the therapy I should have sought 10 years ago. I have learned tools I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Ways to regulate, ways to stay grounded, ways to love better. I have developed an emotional understanding of myself that I never thought I would have, and I will bring that into every relationship I have going forward. Right now, that does not feel like much comfort, but someday I know it will. I love you all. I feel privileged to have ever been part of your family. And if it comes to be that I no longer am, I am deeply sorry, and I will always love you. All of you. With love, Sean.